it's just that's such an amazing thing, and so grateful for them putting this on, so I can talk about myself.
Well, we are thrilled to have you here tonight to look over the entire arc of your career. I guess the first thing I wanted to ask about is your mother, an art teacher, but performing. Where did you have family members who were performers? Where did this come from for you?
It was always a sort of, no one professionally, no one did it. In fact, my mother about 10 years ago told me something, that she'd actually got into RADA, which is the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, which is like the most prestigious school in London, when she was 18 and she didn't have the money to go. So, and she didn't tell me, I didn't know this till about 10 years ago, but she's always clearly had a bit of a, she pushed me, she pushed me out the door. There was performance, my grandparents had it, or my grandmother literally had a box in the attic with clothes in it, old clothes and dresses and all sorts of things. And my sister and I used to just put shows on, in the afternoon. Insufferable.
Were these shows that you made up?
We devised these shows, yeah. 3 acts. Stage lighting, though, just behind the sofa.
When you were really young and doing those things, were you comic? Were you dramatic? Were you doing what were you sort of thinking about in terms? Because it's very funny to talk to actors.
When
about,
you get a laugh, it's like crack cocaine.
Yeah.
You never get enough of it. It's I think that's kind of what you always go for. I was always also fascinated with the kind of. I wanted to do effects. There's lots of ketchup everywhere.
Preparing for tonight, just reading interviews that you've given, my understanding is that in terms of school, you were not a big fan of school. You had kind of a tough time in terms of not being a great student, if I understand correctly.
Yes, put it mildly.
Because I was interested in the idea of it was just like, this is not the world for me, I'm not interested in this. Were you already thinking like,
it's okay.
No, just in terms of like, I don't know if it was even crystallizing in your mind, like, I want to act. There's nothing here that will help me. Or is it just sort of a dissatisfaction with school, with a lot of kids have?
I didn't. I don't think I've ever thought that clearly in my life, but I certainly wasn't thinking that clearly at that age about what school meant or what it was going to do for me. I wasn't in a great school. I was in a very kind of, in certain departments, passionate school, and there was a good drama department, there was a good English department, so that rubbed off on me. But as far as there were other outside influences that were, I would say, really made me want to do it. My mother was an art teacher, trained at Art College in Liverpool, and had lots of friends who went into the theatre, and that, when she was a single parent, and sort of we used to just sort of end up there most sort of Friday evenings, with whatever show was on, just hanging out with friends and things. So I would be backstage at the Everman Theatre in Liverpool, and I got the bug, I think, there.
And did you really think, this is possible, I can do, like this could be a job, like this could be a career for me?
I don't think you ever really think that until you get your first job, and then you get a paycheck, and you realise, and then you maybe get a couple more, because once you get a couple more, you realise you might be able to pay the rent with this job, and that doesn't happen. To me, very fortunately, quite early on, but I actually started early.
And you left school, it was at 16?
Yep.
How big of a jump, how much of a risk did that feel like? Did it just feel like, I've got to do this?
I grew up in Liverpool, which is a magnificent city, but in the 80s it was very, very depressed and had massive unemployment. There were very few opportunities, there were very few jobs, so you were looking, it was a struggle to find anything. And thankfully it's revived now. It's doing. You can visit next time if you go to the UK. Visit Liverpool, please. It's a beautiful city, and Scousers are great. There wasn't a lot to do. I was thinking about joining the Navy. I was thinking about all of these things. Were kind of, I didn't, I wanted to act, but where was I going to go? And my mother, being a teacher, there was a notice board at school, something for the National Youth Theatre, which is an organisation that gets kids from all over the UK, brings them to London, puts on shows, and just as it tries to integrate the country in a brilliant way. And I joined. I got in, and I sort of went to London and never left. And I pushed out the door by my mother.
And so you said she was encouraging you. You actually didn't know this background for herself in terms of maybe,
No, I didn't know that. No, yeah.
I'm curious. You said it was 10 years ago that she told you.
Mm.
Do you think she just didn't want to put that on you, or? Because I think it's a really lovely thing that your mom.
So why?
Yeah.
I mean, she had ambition for me, but it never was about herself. It was never about her own sort of journey, what could have been or whatever. She just I don't know. I think she's the one that set me off.
So you head off to school. A lot of times for young actors, when they start going to school for acting, they maybe meet the people like, oh, these are my people. I've been looking for these people. Whereas other people are like, oh, wait a second, I thought I was the great actor, and now I realize I'm in a school with a bunch of other people who are the great actors in their schools. I'm curious for you, when you went, what was the experience like?
Well, I'd done the National Youth Theatre, so I'd been doing sort of plays in London up until the age from 16 to about 18. I got into drama school when I was just nearly 19. I was horribly arrogant. Just horrible. I can't imagine my younger self. I just kind of, it just really, I had, and it was something that I look back on and I go, maybe I needed to have that arrogance, because ultimately drama school is this amazing place that you go to where you can incubate ideas, you can make mistakes, you can do all the things you're supposed to do when you're at college, and but 90% of the year don't work. I mean, it's like the attrition rate is just, and somehow I had this, I had this sort of like, I'm gonna make this work, I don't know how this thing, and in my third year, my agent, who's sitting there, it's 35, yes, Sally Lovelace, she took me on for drama school. We've been together only 4 years. A long time. So things worked out for me. In a way, I was so, it is a lot of, effort and a lot of done work. That's really kind of what it is. And I somehow had some back then.
When she found you, was it from something that you had, was it a play that you had been in? Like, what was that first meeting like?
Master.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
I'm so bad. I think I had a handkerchief. But it was, yes. Yeah. Okay, thanks. I love you.
Is that the arrogance of just being young and not knowing better, or is it compensating for, I don't know if I've got the chops, but if I kind of fake it till negative?
I think both.
Yeah.
I think really both. I think, and that's how complicated, all young people are. But when you're an actor trying to do this thing, which is basically please like me, oh God, I hate myself. All of these things are just, it's just like, nothing much changes. I still feel exactly the same way.
So in terms of early jobs after school, what is that? Not being an actor, I'm very curious. What is that experience like of just, like you said, when you first start getting paychecks, then you start to feel like, well, wait a second, maybe this can be a real thing. But before that, what is that time period like of looking for work?
So, I went and auditioned at Pinewood Studios at Drama College for this movie that John Avildsen directed called The Power of One. And I went to this audition, and I had to pretend to box, and I had to really do a very, very bad South African accent. And told Sally phoned me up and said, "You got the job?" And I went, "Well, I can't because I've got my lead at drama school. I can't possibly go." She's like, "Daniel, this is the reason you went to drama school." So next thing I'm on a plane to Zimbabwe, and I'm shooting a Warner Brothers movie in Zimbabwe for 3-4 months. So the kind of I had no idea that was going to happen. I mean, I assumed I would try and get a job at the RSC. I would try and get at some sort of acting job somewhere. Maybe there's some television I could do. Maybe so it happened kind of rapidly. I then had quite long periods of not working. But I always sort of managed to sort of work just regularly enough. I made a promise to myself. I mean, I from the age of 14, I've been 14, maybe over than that. 14, I've been working in restaurants. So I did that all the way and during drama school, sort of just to get extra money and things. And I just said to myself, if I have to go back way too long, I've got to give up. I've got to go find something else to do. I can't do that anymore. I've done that now. I've been doing that for like 6 years of my life. I've got to go and I've got to give this everything I have and take the risk. It worked.
It's interesting to hear you say that. I need to take the risk. Did you feel like before that you were maybe not all in as being an actor, or is this thing just about doing this, waiting over and over again, being like, okay, really, I've got to now.
Yeah, I mean, you have it's so psychologically kind of. I mean, any young actor will tell you the nose and the kind of you go constantly go out for jobs and it's you get rejected. I used to sort of disappear for months on end. I mean, I couldn't stand waiting by the phone, so I'd sort of go off and go down to the south of Spain and live in the south of Spain for a couple of months and just not think about acting. Sally, where are you? I'm going to the south of Spain. Because I knew that waiting by the phone was, I don't know where kind of the psychology of it all, you've got to kind of, my desperation walking into an audition is not what people want to see. They want to see somebody who's got something going on in life, kind of, they're just, if you're and I just realised that that's the person I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be that desperate, oh, please can do this job. It's like, I'm happy doing this, what do you think? And I'm trying to be as normal and as human as possible. I mean, I think this is easy to say with hindsight, but that's what it felt at the time.
Well, I think it's interesting for a lot of young actors, it's that thing of, I'm going to act like I should be in the room. Yeah. Until they actually say, yeah, you actually should be in the room. Yeah. That they you believe it, and then eventually they believe it too.
And to have a life outside of acting as well. Something you have hobbies, but like just sort of have a sort of creative life outside acting. It's always useful to bring into, I think, to an audition or to meeting directors and whoever, because shoot the breeze, have a conversation.
Yeah. So you start doing parts in Hollywood productions. You do something like a British production of Elizabeth, but you also do like Tomb Raider. At that point, are you thinking, I'm making it, I'm now I'm living because it's steps for an actor. But I'm curious, where are you in terms of your mindset?
When's the next job coming?
Yeah.
It's like I mean, there's a great story Michael Gambon told me. He used to go and visit Laurence Olivier when he was towards the end of his life. He was quite infirm, was in bed, and Gambon was doing The Cook, the Thief, the Wife and His Lover. And he sat with Olivier and said, what are you doing, dear boy? And Gambon said, I'm doing this Pete Greer movie, this Cook, the Thief. Well, what's that about? He told him the plot, which is just like, now my plot. And Olivier was like, well, call it my fucking agent, why do I get parts like that? It never goes away, It just never goes. Sort of,
One of the things that was really funny about going back and reading interviews was around the time of Layer Cake, when I think most Americans really started to be like, who is that guy? And often, Layer Cake comes to the US. The James Bond stuff is kind of on the horizon at that point. But you're mostly described as a character actor.
Yes.
At that time in interviews.
Yes.
And I'm always very interested in this idea of actors in terms of character actors versus leading men. where was your own kind of, were you thinking, I want to graduate from character actor, I want something bigger than that? Or what were you sort of thinking at that moment?
I don't know how to answer that really. In the sense that I've never ever thought of myself in that way. I just thought, it's all the same acting. So it doesn't, I think that's sort of like putting into boxes about what actors are is kind of can be, I mean, Charles Lawton was one of the best character actors, or Ned Beatty or someone like that. I mean, God, to be like Ned Beatty, how amazing would that be?
Yeah.
But if you're kind of talking about the kind of the leading man thing, that's still a kind of, that's a complicated thing to kind of understand what that actually means. But I had a mission. I've always had a mission. I always wanted to get on. I just didn't have any plan to what that might be. I mean, I sort of took it as it came at me.
So how did, in terms of Layer Cake and working with Matthew Vaughn, but I say for a lot of American viewers, that was sort of we noticed a change in terms of who you were. How did that come about for you?
Matthew contacted Sally, and I went to have a meeting, and we kind of went back and forth a bit, and then we said, I'd do it. So it was very simple, but yeah, it was a sort of a kind of, I suppose, a leap of faith, and also, I just had fun playing it. I just went out there. I sort of stood up straight. That's kind of what the part. I mean, and people went, "Oh, I don't know what that means." That's what I look at when I see the movie. I go, "Oh, you're standing up straight." Character actor, leading actor.
There is a quote that you had at that time that I absolutely love, and I feel like it so represents what I love about you as an actor. I just love it. It's a few sentences, but I just like to read it really super fast. This is a time where Layer Cake is coming out, and people are starting to ask you like, "Hey, James Bond, is that happening?" Whatever. And there's the question of this like
so like cowering.
No, it's not like that. It's not like that. But it's about the idea of being famous and being a celebrity.
Right.
Because at that point you were mostly thought as a character actor. You hadn't had these big parts yet. And you in the interview were talking about this idea. And you said, "I don't want to be a celebrity because that sucks."
Still don't.
It's just madness. But how do you quantify fame? I'm not into self-promotion. My front room is nobody's fucking business. If you invite someone into your front room, you can't be surprised when there are suddenly people outside your windows with cameras. And you, on a lot of your interviews, you will say, there's no master plan in terms of how you think about your career. But I think about that quote, and I think, that feels like the ethos. I mean, we haven't met until tonight. But I feel like that's the ethos of your work, is that, even as you joked right now, like, celebrity sucks. That you have never really thought about what you want to do in terms of being famous, being sort of like a celebrity in that way. It's about the work. But you're also very private about, you have your life, and then you have the life of the work itself. And I'm kind of curious, so I hope that that quote wasn't jarring, because I really love that quote from you, because I feel like it's so representative of how you approach your work. And I'm curious as to ask you about that quote. Does that still feel like the way that you feel about things?
I was that eloquent. I'm quite I said that. I remember Laura, who's here as well, my publicist again, who's been my publicist for a long time. I had just done Road to Perdition, and I think Sally said, "You might need a publicist." And I was like, "Oh, okay, really?" And I had this meeting with her and said, "Oh, just keep people away, please, just keep people away, it's all I want you to do." It might be a bit more complicated than that. I think I just felt like, I think maybe growing up in England, I don't know, I had no sort of grasp on, you have to sell this product. I totally understand that. It's so important that you get out there and sell what we do. It's a business, and I want as many people to see what I do as possible. So I wasn't kind of, you know, but the sort of idea of enjoying that process, or enjoying the kind of, I don't know, I think if you sort of get used to that sort of life, that adulation in my mind, if I was getting used to that and getting used to that kind of self-promotion, that thing, you've sort of gone to the dark side of it. You've gone to sort of a place which isn't real. You're expecting things, and I just, again, separating kind of the church and state of it all is that's my life and this is my work, and these two have to be separate, because if one bleeds into the other, then it's only one-way traffic, but if the work bleeds into the home life, it's to the detriment of the home life. And the home life needs to be protected. So, and also my own sanity needs to be protected. So I felt like that very early on, yes.
Because that's such a wise perspective. I'm curious, did you see other actors and see maybe
it's family, it's my family.
Is that what it is?
Just my family, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you keep your business to yourself. Yeah.
You sort of famously took a year to decide about doing James Bond. And I'm wondering, and you've talked about the fact that you told them, like, I need to think about this. I need to talk to my friends. I need to talk to my family. And I'm wondering if what we're talking about right now, that was part of it. The idea of
sure is. Yeah.
the deal I'm making, essentially. A lot of people would want to be James Bond. You've told great stories about a great friend of yours saying, like, this happens to so few people.
Yes.
Yeah. But still, there is a deal that you're making, and you don't even know what it's going to be. I'm curious what that year was in terms of thinking about it and going through that process of a year.
The script wasn't ready, so I had this sort of, you can't possibly do this till I see a script. But that gave me some time. I said I need to think about it. I need to talk to everybody. I spoke to everybody, and just, my family included, and what that. I could never imagine what it would mean. I could only guess at what it might mean. It was like you can't visualize that. Did a pro and con list.
Do you still have that list now?
No, Christ. Do I still have that pro and con list? No, I don't. No, I don't think so. No, I don't. Listen, if I don't do it, I will regret it for the rest of my life. An opportunity. What am I in this business for, if not to push myself as far as I can go? And what an opportunity! How incredible! Let's grab it with both hands and go for it. That was kind of really good.
I also wanted to ask about something I read that, especially for the first film, Casino Royale. You had a quote about the fact that you had, I think you called it the Austin Powers test. I love it.
Because the Austin Powers films had just come out and they were so brilliant.
Right.
And he'd exploded the Bond myth. He got hold of it, and I was just like, oh no, God, we kind of. So I had the kind of klaxon on set, like, no, we can't do that. I wish we. Anyway, never mind. But
I love that idea because it's. I think people forget now that at the time when you stepped in to play Bond, the Austin Powers movies were so big. That's
at the height of it.
So that's what we thought in terms of like spy movies. Oh, they're funny. Wait, there's going to be a new James Bond. How are they going to handle these really funny, successful, Mike Myers movies? You have also joked about. I think you've called yourself the grumpy Bond. You called yourself the humorless Bond. I'm wondering, did you start to? When did you start realizing that people actually really loved the Bond that you were doing? Because you were all taking a risk. The script was a risk. It was a new direction for that character. When did you all, or just for you specifically, since I have you here, when did you actually feel like, I think this is going to work actually? This different version of Bond, different way of thinking about Bond, this is actually going to work.
After Casino came out and the numbers came in and people's response was just more than we could have ever expected. And that was. I had a mindset while making it, which was, if I make one and walk away, I've done my best. I just try to kind of keep myself as sort of just as sane as possible about it all and not think too much about the future. We had a troubling second album with Quantum, but I think after that we got pretty good, and I feel like even in the last one and the kind of what the humour came back in, not a laugh a minute clearly, but I do think that what my always thing was, we have to get the gags have to kind of come out of the script. You can't just have the gags because that's what Austin Powers had done. He took Bond gags and sort of made them into these. And we can't do that. You can't take what's happened. They always have to come out of the situation, and so. I mean, where it grew to, where it went to, for me was just far more and bigger and more glorious than I could have ever imagined.
You mentioned sort of the troubled second album, I think is how you put it. Once you make Quantum and then you go on from there to make Skyfall, what is the feeling in terms of, is there ever doubt? Is there ever a worry of maybe this isn't going to work out? Maybe, first one was successful, second one was successful but not as successful.
I don't know, it's doubt. I mean, what the way my head works, and we had a writer's strike, we had all sorts of things, the script wasn't ready, all those things, and we rushed it through, and there was lots of mistakes, and very still proud of it. It was a huge amount of work, and that went into that movie. There's some pretty brilliant scenes in it. But for me, I had to go rethink, and I met Sam Mendes at a party in New York, and I looked at him, and the clouds opened up, and I went, direct the next movie. And it was like, because it's like, why are we, it's like, why isn't Sam Mendes directing the next Bond? It was like, it kind of just became sort of very clear to me. And he said yes, so, and the rest is history as far as Skyfall is, it just took it. It was the thing that needed to happen. It was a great brain, Sam coming in and just like taking it and knowing Bond like he did and loving it like he did, and it sort of propelled us into something else, which is a relief to me, obviously, but also just I felt some responsibility for it because I wanted that to happen. I wished it to happen.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the Knives Out films. People who write about film, people who see films, we have a very different impression of how artists make their choices. But from the outside perspective, it seemed like, okay, and by the way, I actually think that your James Bond movies are very funny. And so I always thought it was sort of interesting. But I take your... Casino Royale is incredibly funny.
Right.
It is really, but it's a different type of humor, I definitely know what you're saying. But from the outside perspective, it's like, okay, Daniel Craig does Logan Lucky, which is really funny. And then you do the Knives Out films, which are also really, really funny. And from the outside perspective, it's like, oh, is he wanting to do something that's more, I don't know, lighthearted, fun, not as much pressure as making a James Bond movie? That's the outside perception. But I'm curious to ask you about that.
I had a wonderful experience with Phoebe Waller-Bridge on Time to Die, working with a very, very incredibly talented comic writer. And it made me appreciate so much how hard it is to write funny lines, whatever that is. It's a skill, and there are brilliant improvisational performers who can sort of do it on set, create it as it happens. I'm just not one of those people, and having the lines in front of you that are funny, witty, smart, all of these things allows you then to improvise on top of that, and you can just, that for me is just like this glorious moment where you kind of like all things come together. So I think that might have spurred me on in the sense that I maybe was in the back of my mind looking for something witty, smart, and Ryan sent me Knives Out, and it was like, this is it. I mean, I laughed out loud when I read that script, and laughed out loud again when I read it a second time, and kind of said, really, are you sure? the accent? And he was like, yep. And he's like,
Was there anything that you, because the script is terrific, but was there anything that changed when you came on board? Were there sort of thoughts that you had?
it's not the way Ryan works.
Yeah.
His script is ready to go, and he's worked on it, and yes, of course, there's bits we change, edit it out, we tweak it a little bit, but you don't have to. You just don't have to. It's there.
You just finished shooting the third one? Is that?
In the summer, yeah, June, July, August.
I'm curious because it's now a franchise. How does it compare doing the Knives Out films as opposed to the James Bond?
Doesn't hurt as much.
Does it feel, especially after doing the James Bond movies, does this feel more like, oh, this is beyond the fact that you don't have to put your
I'm
body
very
in
much involved on a Bond movie, and this is Barbara and Michael. You know, I asked them for this when I first did Casino. I said, listen, if I'm going to walk on set and pretend to be this man who is so far away from me, it's ridiculous, and probably most human beings, but he's just, you know, it's like, I need to feel like I'm part of the whole process. I need to feel like I know what's going on, I'm included in decisions, and if you let me do that, then I'll be able to play this part, because I'll feel confident, and they did. So on a Bond movie, I'm sort of there, it's a 7-day-a-week job, we're taking meetings, I'm part of every single not every single decision, but a lot of decisions. So it's all encompassing, so I wouldn't have it any other way, and that's what makes it so amazing to do. On Knives Out, I turn up, I do my part, I go, great.
You had said that James Bond is the furthest thing from you, and probably the furthest thing from most people. I'm curious, in terms of performances that you've given, do any of the characters that you have played really feel like you?
I suppose that's a good question, because in the sense that it's like, I'm not an impressionist, so I don't do impressions of people, I don't do this. What I try and do is I find something, of course it's me, in a way. The decisions my characters make, I've got no responsibility for. What I mean is, it's that it can only be you, because you've got to tap into the reality, what you think the reality of it is. So I suppose, I think you kind of have to put yourself, it is, they say, what audiences go to watch? Are they going to watch the character, or are they going to watch the actor? It's like, I don't know the answer to that, but it is a kind of, it's an interesting one.
I know that not everybody here has seen Queria, which is wonderful, and you were wonderful in it. But I'm curious in terms of, are you an actor who, I don't know if you were familiar with the Burroughs book before this, but I guess I'm curious about in terms of, is part of your process at the beginning thinking, how is this person like me, or is that not part of your process in terms of coming to understand this guy, playing this guy? Do you need to have some sort of, I know this, or I understand this about him, or he's like me in this way?
I think you get into some character and you start, it's the humanity of the person that you're kind of looking for. And then their choices, which of course are a response to what's happened to them. Maybe in the movie, but also within their backstory, their life. So you're inventing it. You're constructing it as a thing. I think you sort of step into it. I don't like consciously say, oh, we're similar, but we're all similar. We're all pretty much the same, and that's what's wonderful. That's the way we can talk to each other through art, because you can get responses from people, and that's what you're looking for. Is what does that move me? Do you think that will move someone else? That's a kind of constant kind of conversation you have.
I'm curious, when you were young and first started getting into movies, obviously you've done a lot of theater work as well, but what were the movies that moved you when you were young? What movies got you thinking, yeah, that would be something I'd like to do?
I grew up in a small town. We had one cinema, and it played movies all day long. It got them kind of, once they'd been round a country, the Prince came to this cinema, the classic cinema in Hoylake, and they were sort of they were scratched, you know, but they played movies like a different movie 3 times a day, 3 different movies 3 times a day. And I just go and sit and watch movies and everything. And I suppose, and we went to the cinema. I mean, I remember going to see Gone with the Wind in Liverpool. Like, there was an interval, and I think it might have been selling cigarettes as well as ice cream. Yeah. That's so long ago it was. But I would sit in that cinema often on my own, so I had a screening room to myself. You know, so that's why it was so grand. And I'd watch movies that come on. I mean, I remember seeing. One that really affected me was Blade Runner. That was a mind-blowing experience. And they'd let me in to see anything. I mean, I was too young to go and see movies, but they'd let me in to see them. And then, you know, from that to sort of watching with packed cinema, Grease, with like the whole popcorn going over it. You know, so that, and I was like, that's what I want to do. That's where I want to be. I wanted to be up on that screen.
To go back to queer for a second, I was thinking about that it's been a little while since you've done a love story. And from everything I've read about you, you're not somebody who, again, has a plan in terms of how he's thinking about his career. But was it something that when the script came your way that you thought, I've missed doing something like this? I'd like to. Obviously, Casino Royale, there's a love story in that. I realize it, but in terms of like a real, I don't want to spoil anything if people haven't seen it, like a really kind of beautiful, complex, nuanced love story like Queer. Had you been missing that?
I mean, I don't know if I'd been missing it, but I think that when I got the script, I mean, you know, Luca, I was just desperate to work with, and so the fact that he came and offered me something was just like incredible. But it was this, and it was, you know, at first I thought, oh my God, that's a challenge. And then I just sat down with him, we talked about it, and we said, it's a love story. And as soon as he said that, I went, well, then I've got this, I know what this is. So I wasn't necessarily doing that, but I do think, you know, I mean, what else is there?
I mean, Luca keeps talking about the fact that he offered you this and thought he's never going to do this.
Yes.
But there was no hesitation. You knew you wanted to. You wanted to work with him. This is your first time working with him.
As long as I had to talk to him and say, look, you know, this is potentially problematic. I know it's in my wheelhouse. I think I know who this person is, and so therefore, you know, and he was very confident and allowed me. I mean, you know, it was an amazing experience to work with Luca because I'm a tight-assed Englishman and working on an Italian film set with, you know, Italian crews and the noise and the kind of celebration that is making movies over there made me just, I had just relaxed and had a lot of fun playing it. So.
Because I think about your post-Bond career, and I think it's just really impressive, the work that you've done, the different types of things that you've done. And again, to keep repeating the same thing, I know that there isn't a master plan, but was there any part of you that thought, now that Bond is over, I want to do everything. I have this freedom now. You know, I want to do, yeah.
I suppose what Bond has given me, and you know, which is what's just extraordinary about this life and the way my life has gone, is it's given me this security. My family is secure now, and all of those things. And that working takes you away from home, and if you're going to go away from home, it's got to be for a fucking good reason. That's really it. So now I'm just looking for jobs that I fall in love with, like that I don't have a choice about doing, and you know that I'm afforded that luxury because I can, you know, I've been made secure by Bond, and that's the only reason. That's the only thing I'm thinking of as far as a plan. Only do the job if I love it.
We're here for a career conversation, and I'm interested for you, all the work that you've done. We're going to get to Girl with a Dragon Tattoo here in a second, which I love. Again, I'm just interested that you always, almost in every interview you've done, you've said, I have no master plan. But when you think back on...
You don't believe me, do you?
I think a lot of actors...
Keep saying it, tell me.
Well, I think a lot of actors lot of actors say, and I do believe it.
Yeah.
But I wonder in the hindsight, looking back, does you go, oh, actually, maybe there was some kind of plan here. I didn't realize it at the time, but now that I look back and think about the decisions I made or decisions I decided not to make, oh, now I can kind of see that there was something there.
I don't know if there was, I really don't. I think the psychology of it, trying to get myself into the right frame of mind to do this job and try and work on that, my mental health, and keep that as sane as possible to try and then not lose the ambition. And the ambition was always there and always is there and always has been. And it's like my ambition was to do better. What that really meant, I couldn't say. I couldn't visualize what better was, but I knew it had to be better than the stuff that had gone before, and I was always trying to look forward. I'm not, I don't like looking back. I don't like going over old. This is excruciating. but very nice that you're doing this. You're making this very lovely. These lovely people. I don't know. I'm very happy. Sorry.
It has been our absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
It's been our absolute pleasure.
Just that there's no, I never wrote anything down or did anything like that. It's like I always try to go with my gut.
So how does Girl with the Dragon Tattoo?
Fincher. So, it's like, it's David Fincher. It's like, bucket list. I mean, it's like, and he wants to do this, and I just had, it was just a great, and it didn't disappoint. I mean, I had such fun with him, and such, such a great collaborative process with him, and I'm very proud of the outcome.
Because never having worked with Fincher, we always hear like, oh, he's very demanding, lots of takes. Did you take two then? How was that experience in terms of his process?
We never did that. No, we didn't do lots of takes. No. We did one day of lots of takes, and I just sidled up to him and went, "You don't know what you're doing, do you?"
We were talking before about queer in terms of love stories. I don't think he's here. I think it's okay. Talking about queer and that being a love story, I was rewatching Girl with the Dragon Tattoo in preparation for us tonight, and I was like, this is also a love story. Maybe that's a warped perception of it, but there is such a bond that develops between you and her. And I'm curious in terms of that collaboration, because one of the things I love about this movie is that I think she's amazing in the film.
She is, yes.
But she is on an extreme, and you're almost like the grounding thing that kind of keeps it believable.
Well, I'm the Bond girl. It's like much easier. It doesn't hurt.
Was that actually something that you all discussed at the time in terms of making like, oh shit, now I get to be that, yeah.
But I knew it wasn't lost on me.
Yeah. In terms of working with her and developing that rapport between two very dissimilar characters who find this connective tissue over the film, is that rehearsals? Is that just the script?
It's the script. Steve's script. It's just really, it's just so great. And I don't know. I don't really recollect how we rehearsed it, but I do think it's really just when you meet an actor as good as Rooney, then you sort of like go, oh my god, it's like that they're going to be great, and you're going to have it, and we laughed, and lots of fun, and those are always important things to do to kind of get sort of, I think, so that you can see the relationship on screen and sort of the stuff that's going on off camera.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite films that you have made, and you have made a lot of terrific films. I can't thank you enough for talking to us tonight. I don't know if anyone's not seen Girl with the Dragon Tattoo on the big screen before. It's an absolute treat. You're going to have such a great time tonight with the film. Thank you so much for being here.